Going on, everyone? Welcome, Rabid here, and today we are going to be silencing the Antminer L9. So depending on your ambient temperatures, when this thing first boots up, it can get very loud. We did all the testing on the Antminer L9 in a previous video here. While mining, it isn't too bad, but it can get kind of annoying depending on your ambient temperatures. Obviously, the hotter climate you're in, the louder these fans will be to cool them, and it'll turn into a lot of noise here. So we got a silencing kit courtesy of Frutations Design. They make amazing kits here. I'm going to be slapping it on here and showing you how to install it. All right, so let's go over what you get with the kit. So here are your two shrouds that's going to go on each side of the fan. One side will connect into inline 8-inch fan there. I will have all links to everything down in the description. I'll show you how to put these all on, obviously, when we get to it. So you do have a nice instruction booklet that tells you all the steps and how to do everything. So make sure you do follow that as well as this video if you like to do it step by step. Some other things we got here that it does come with. Here we can see we got some fan cables. Now this right here is your auto fan adjustment. You can get this, or you can just get the basic spoofers, but this will auto adjust your inline fan based on the temperature of the miner. I think this is the nicest way to do it, would be with one of these. It does come with some jumper settings here, so depending how you want to run it and based on the firmware, I'm not sure what firmwares are all available currently, but looking at these right here, you can kind of see exactly what they are. So you can see at the top there, if you want a max fan rate of 100% for the Bitmain default firmware, you just leave it as is, no jumpers. You can limit it to a maximum of 70%, or you can jump down there. If you are using something like LuxOS here, you can see that it does require different jumpers over that. So make sure you do follow this guide depending on how you're running your Antminer. But right now, I think the default firmware is Bitmain's. I don't know if there's any third party available yet. Now there is also the default fan spoofers. So with an ASIC, your fans always have to be running perfect or your ASIC could shut down. So what these do is they make you run manual mode. So this will trick the fans into thinking everything is good and plugging in, but you will have to run your inline fan on manual mode to whatever speeds you want. Some people like it and some people like the auto mode. Both options are available. All right, guys, so the first thing you are going to want to do here is put it in sleep mode, wait for the fans to ramp up, and then you can safely unplug it without causing any type of arc or spark or anything like that while it's drawing full power. So once it's in sleep mode, unplug it, disconnect the power, and bring it to a nice safe location to start doing this mod. So now I'm going to flip this. We want to be facing towards the back side. All right, so here is the back of the L9, and there's 3 screws we're going to have to remove. One is right under the button right here. You can see that guy right there. That is locking it, so you can't push this button. We're going to have to remove this screw. That way you can push this, and it'll remove this cover here. We're also going to have to come down and remove this screw right here, as well as this screw right here, to allow the top of the power supply. This is where all our cabling for our fans and everything is going to be. So we have to remove that to gain access into the miner. All right, so as I'm pulling this out, I just want to point note here, be very careful. There are 2 very small washers. There is a lock washer and then your normal washer beside there, and they're very small and easy to lose. So be very careful when taking these out. You don't want to lose those. Those lock washers actually preventing the screw. As I talk about all the time, small vibrations always happen, and that lock washer will actually prevent this from trying to backspin over time. So be very careful here. Okay, so I do have those 2 screws removed here as well as this. So this should simply just pull off now by hitting the button. There we can see it is lifting up. So you want to lift up and kind of pull towards you a little bit here, and it slides right out like so. Put that to the side. Once you got that out of the way, then you're going to come into over the power supply here. Simply pull it forward just a little bit, not too heavy. There you go. It's pretty nice and easy actually. And then just slide that right out. Now we have access to everything above that we need to do. So there's going to be some twist ties and stuff in here that we are going to have to cut. We can see one right in the middle right there, just to free up all our wiring. All right, so just for a guide for me as well as you guys, so I can look back on things, you can as well if you ever got to put it back together. Here's where the fans currently are. So these 2 plugs on the right are going to the fans in the back, because I do have this turned around right now, and the 2 plugs on the left facing it from the back go up to the front. So that's just kind of how the wiring is going for the fans, if you are curious about it. All right, so there were 2 zip ties that I did cut. One was wrapped around in here, which I got rid of that, and the other one was around these. So now we can see we have access to all our wires. We can unplug all our fan plugs here, and that's all we really need to do. All right, so I did go ahead and unplug all the fan cables, as we can see there, but there's one more zip tie you did have to do. Right here we can see this little zip tie was kind of going through a little hole here, so that is a third one that you will have to kind of unplug here to get these out. So now we're just simply going to remove all our fan plugs here, get this little piece out of here. We don't want that in there. There we go, nice and complete here. So there we can see all our fans are now unplugged. So now we're going to have to come into the front here and undo all here. So we're going to have to unscrew. There's 4 screws per fan here, and they're all going to kind of follow together because they're still wired together. Leave them as is. Make sure you do save all your screws and fan covers and everything, because if you ever plan on taking this kit off or sell your ASIC or something or send it to hosting, you're going to want to put all of this stuff back together. All right, and here you can see I do have the back fans off right now, and that is the inside of an ASIC. So that's all an ASIC is. It is a bunch of hash boards loaded up with pretty much a bunch of ASIC chips with some heat sinks on top, power supply on the side, and this is what you're hashing away. Now in theory, this is an ASIC body. You could put anything inside of these, CPUs, whatever, and you know, it can look like an ASIC but not really be an ASIC. But this is pretty basic here. ASICs are a pretty simple design, and that's how it works. So pretty sweet here. I did put the fans down right here. I put the screws back in the sides, if you can kind of see them there. That way everything's together, because I do plan on putting it back together later on, because I will be sending this out to hosting to metered mining, where anybody can get only 8-cent power for all your mining ASIC needs on GPUs and ASIC mining. I think actually GPUs might be 9 cent, but ASICs at least are only 8-cent power over there. So if you are looking for a hosting facility, check out metered mining. That will definitely be down in the description as well. All right, so now I got to flip this around and take the fans off the front side. Now remember, if you do put it back together, the fans on the back is facing you, because you want the air to flow this way. These fans always blow towards the back, so where the sticker is. So here you can see that is the sticker, the back of the fan. The airflow is going to come out of it. And on the front side, you're not going to have the back of the fan showing. You're actually going to have the front, which we'll look at as soon as I turn this thing around. And here you can see this is the front, and there is no stickers. The fans are placing front ways. That way the air sucks from the front here, blows through the machine, and then the fans on the back are reversed to suck the air from this side and displace it outside. So that's kind of how the fan orientation does work if you do decide, or you'd forget which way the fans go and stuff like that. So now I got to remove the fans on the front here. All right, guys, so the next step can be a little bit tricky, especially if you stand it up or you are not on any even ground. So make sure you lay it sideways, and make sure you are fairly flat, nice and level here, because we're going to have to remove all the screws here from the power supply fans. We're going to be reusing those for the shroud, but if you are not even here, nice and level, these fans are going to slide around. It's going to be a real pain to properly find the hole. So make sure you're nice and level, and that will make life so much easier. It'll be a simple pull out, push in, and you're good to go. So right now I am going to pull out all these screws and then put on our fan shroud, which does look like this. So that's going to sit over there like so, which will then plug into our shroud that goes over top of that and allow that airflow to conduct through these and through that inline fan. All right, so I got the covers and all the screws out. Our fans are all loose right now, so if anything shakes and stuff, they can move around and lose their holes. But you can see here that they're all lined up pretty good. This one on the side here is a little bit off, but that should be, it should catch no problem. Now, if you plan on having this in your house and silent long term, you can simply open up the side of the PSU here and remove the fans. That'll be better for long term, because then you don't have the fans spinning on themselves with their own power, as well as having that air forced through them also. So you can remove those fans if that's something you want to do, but like I said, I'm going to be sending this to hosting soon, and I will be putting it back together normally, so I am just going to leave the fans in there. So this is going to be kind of hard to do while holding the camera, but I do want to point out here, everything is screwing in nice and easy, no messing around with anything, because we do have a nice level surface here. But I'd like to put everything in the top right corner and then in the bottom left on the bottom here. That way you kind of have the two corners in, and the rest of the holes should all line up. So I'm simply going to show you how easy it is as long as you do have this nice and level. I'm simply going to take this, put it in there, And I don't know if you guys can see that, but I'm just going to start screwing because it is all nice and in. There you go. I just screwed it in and bam, in there like nothing. Piece of cake, nice and level, no fan movement. I know a lot of people did have issues with this. Fans are all over the place trying to line it up. And the issue is just make sure you're level here. It will make your life so much easier when doing this. Things will stay lined up. All right, so everything is installed. We got them nice and tight. They screw in nice and easy. The next step is the front of the shroud here. So I'm going to quickly grab it. It is this guy right here. And as you can see on the bottom, there are a couple screws. So I do recommend, because this shroud is a little bit fatter, make sure you have a little bit of hangovers over your desk so you're not hitting up against the desk here. Hang it over a little bit. That'll make life nice and easy. And you're going to see on it, for the bottom screw holes here, this will actually have little divots right there, which you can see kind of. I can't use my other hand to focus here, but you can see the divots on the bottom there. That'll actually slide right over there, lining everything up perfectly. And with this, to tighten these up, it does come with 16 screws, 8 for each shroud, as well as a nice sticker from Fruitation Designs in the front. So you're going to have to use these new screws to fasten that into there. We're not using the fan screws because they are way too long because of the thickness of the fans. All right, so there you can see it's kind of mounted. It's not all the way in yet. What I like to do is just get the 2 middle ones in like so, and now you can drive in all the other screws that are required. 2 in the top here, some more right there, and then 2 more in the bottom. But this will hold everything in place as is, and now you can get the rest of the screws in pretty easy. All right, so we got all the screws in. They're in, not too tight, because they can just strip out and stuff. If you crank on it, you don't need to crank on it, but you know, get them nice and snug. So now we're going to flip this over and put on the back side of the shroud. All right, so the back side is exactly the same as the front, but here you can see there is a little seal for around the power supply, so make sure you get it on right. The power supply is on the left side, looking at it straight on. All right, guys, so now we have both shrouds on each side here of the Litecoin Dogecoin bazooka miner, is what this is slowly turning into. So next up, we got to start installing our fan spoofers. Okay, so next up, we're going to install our fan spoofer. So this is the automatic one. Our inline fan will plug into this USB-C plug right here, and this should tell it how fast to run the fans all the time. Now, unlike when we did do the L9 as well as the S19, this is using 4-pin plugs, as you can see right there. Unlike the little 4 pins that we used to have, we can't see that, it's not zooming in, but there is a kind of an adapter here we're going to use. So I think these ones should work right here. So you can see it does go, actually it's not going into those. So we actually have to take these ones. It's a double thing here. So we're actually going to have long. So we need these ones here, which you can see are 4 pins to the big 4 pins, which will then plug into these ones right here, those mini 4 pins into that there, which will then plug into this guy right here. So I'm going to get everything plugged into this, and then you can see me as I install it into the miner itself. All right, so I got all these ones plugged into the fan spoofer here, but these will not connect to those 4 pins. So now we got to go another conversion over with these guys right here. So I'm going to get these put in and show you what it looks like. All right, so this is what things should look like in the end. We got our automatic fan spoofer here. We got those mini plugs plugged in right here, which then go to the other extensions and conversions over to the big 4 pins right there. This is what it'll look like complete here. So now we just got to figure out the best way to get the covers and everything back on, and we're pretty much ready to start mining again once we get our inline fan and ducting all hooked up. All right, so I think the best way to run this would be to run your cable here, which does control the fan, unplug your manual switch here and plug it in. You can see right here I got the USB plugged in and it's running in through that little hole. That way I can get the covers on, because with it sticking out, you wouldn't really be able to get on the covers, and then your bus bars and whatever else will be exposed. You touch it, you'll probably be zapping yourself. So anyway, so tuck this underneath everything here, and I think everything should be good. So I'm going to get the covers back on, get the screws back installed here, and then we'll get our fan on, and hopefully everything's working. All right, so there is our Litecoin bazooka right here. Now next up, we need our fan installation. So this is an 8-inch inline fan. So all we got to do is simply slide that into this like so, like that, and then we'll put a strap around it and it'll hold it nice and tight there. Other options, if this is still too loud for you, which it'll already be quiet, but if you're very picky, you can even install silencers like these big guys right here. They're like exhaust pipes for this, you know, some mufflers you can put on one end as well as the other end if you really want, making this thing absolutely beast mode, like 10 feet long, which you don't really need. It's overkill and expensive, but it'll turn this thing into, won't even hear this thing hum pretty much. It'll make it dead silent. But for the most part, this here is all you're really gonna need. All right, so I did take the clamp here, and you can see I did snug it down. It doesn't need to be too tight here, but we can see we are nice and tight. Everything is shaking around. We're not getting any wiggle room or slight things happening there. So this is all good. Now I got to get everything plugged in, and we should be ready to rock some mining again. All right, guys, so I got everything plugged in. When I turn on your fan first, I plug that in. Obviously, it starts spinning up and ramping up, and then as soon as I plugged in the L9, the fan kicked down on it, so it does sound like, or at least assume so, that controller and everything in there is working for the auto fan speed. So I am waiting for this thing to boot up now. So it sounds like it's doing its booting process stuff because I'm hearing the fans start to pick up again. The initial thing when you first boot it up for the first 5 minutes or so, that's when we got crazy high sounds from the fans because it is doing all those system checks coming in. We don't see any red lights or anything, so that's obviously a plus here. If it'll focus over there, there we go. And obviously I got a little bit of ducting going on here. Ignore my ducting job, I'll fix it later. But as mentioned, I plan on sending this to hosting anyway, to metered mining. But you can just have a quick look here what I got running. Absolute horrible, right across the floor down to here. And then, you know, eventually I might point it up so it goes directly into that fan. But I'm just doing a quick test here to make sure everything works. I got the fan on its own individual watt meter right there so we can test that. And I got everything else here shut off. GPUs are back off again for this initial testing because I want to see how much power, if we save anything between there, because we should be using less power on the L9 because those expensive high power fans that aren't very efficient are no longer in here. So we're going to be using that. So if we add up the power of this with the power of fan and seeing if we're also running a little bit more efficient or not. All right, so coming into our dashboard, things are looking pretty good. All the chips, everything, the system and everything did pass its check. We're sitting at 16.48 on the average. We just turned it on. We're at 15.83. So we're going to be over our 16 gigahash as expected. Inlet temperatures are 53, 56, and 54, and our outlets is 83, 84, 83. So everything does seem to be working. Everything's working as is. So let's go over there, check out our power consumptions and noise levels. All right, so about 68.6. Previously, we were mining at about 78 to 80 decibels. So now you can see it's actually quieter than me talking into the microphone. So that's pretty sweet here. Let's take a look at our power consumption at the wall. We are now using about 33, 34. So we are about the same. We were about, what, 3,300 watts or something when we were mining with the fan. So we are using about the same, a bit more power. How much power is our fan actually using now? I can see here about 36 watts. So we are using a little bit more power using this setup, but we are extremely quiet now. You can't really hear this thing. It sounds like it's quieter than a fan, you know, like than a fan that you would set up on a hot day blowing in your living room. All you really hear is a little bit of airflow kind of going through things, and that's probably because I have this sharp angle happening right there. But for the most part, this thing is now pretty much dead silent. So it is a pretty nice thing if you're really worried. If you have 240 volt and everything and you're really worried about the noise, this is definitely an option to get this thing much quieter. All right, guys, so that pretty much does wrap this up. If you are looking for a silencing kit for the majority of big ASICs out there, head on over to Fruitation Design. I will have that link down in the description if you are looking for any ASICs, including the big bad boy L9, which is probably one of the most stable ASICs out there for any algorithm, you know, versus Kaspa, Lithium. Bitcoin is not profitable for any home miner. The L9 is probably the best choice next to possible Ethash ASICs. And Miner Bros will have you set up. Link in the description, and code RABID will grant you $70 off your order for each individual item. Thanks for checking this out. Hopefully I helped you guys out in setting up your silencing kit. I'll see you on the next one. Rabid out.